is not agreed to.
Madam President.
Madam President,
Senator from Connecticut.
a while back we skipped over the McCaskill-Merkley amendment because we were working on a modification. The modification is ready now, and I'd ask unanimous consent that we proceed to the McCaskill-Merkley amendment number 2031.
Is there objection? Madam President? Without objection, so ordered. Madam President? The Senator from Missouri.
Madam President, I call up my amendment number 2031 and ask consent that it be modified with the changes that are at the desk.
Is there objection? Without objection, so ordered. The clerk will report.
The Senator from Missouri, Mrs. McCaskill, proposes an amendment number 2031 as modified.
I ask consent that further reading be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Madam President, this amendment reflects the efforts of a lot of people to deal with rural post office closings in a way that will be straightforward and fair to rural communities across this country. It is going to prevent any closings for 1 year while the reforms that are embedded in this bill have a chance to begin to work. It then sets some clear standards for potential closures. I want to thank Senator Moran, who did some great work on this subject in committee. He deserves credit for beginning the process of taking a hard look at rural post offices and how we were dealing with them. I obviously want to thank Senator Merkley, who's worked on this, Senator Tester, who's worked on it, and Senator Sanders. But I really want to thank Senator Collins and Senator Lieberman for continuing to model to this body what true bipartisanship looks like, and who continually strive for that very elusive and rare but valuable commodity in a democracy, that thing known as compromise. This amendment now represents one of those compromises. I'm proud to be a part of it. I think it strikes the right note of protecting rural post offices, but also with a realistic eye towards the future and how we are fair to rural communities in a way that is predictable and one that, frankly, shows some accountability for the Postal Service. And I ask that this be taken up by voice vote, Madam President.
Madam President. Madam President, I appreciate the work that's been done on this. I know there's a lot of interest really on both sides of the aisle because of the concern about rural post offices. This establishes, again, some standards, effectively asks the Postal Service before it considers closing a rural post office for 1 year after enactment of this legislation, that it explore every other opportunity to continue to provide service other than closing the Postal Service. The one clear authority given in the modified amendment is to close a rural post office when there is no significant community opposition, which is to say when the Postal Service has convinced the people of the community that they have a good alternative to the current post office. So I think we've reasoned together. I hope that this enables our colleagues who may have been thinking of more absolute prohibitions to closing post offices to step back from that. This is a rational, fair approach. I support the modification and the amendment and would move that the amendment be adopted by voice vote.
Further debate? If not, the question is on the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
Madam President, I move for reconsideration and ask that the motion be laid on the table.
Without objection.
Madam President.
The Senator from Maine.
Madam President, I call up Snow Amendment 2080 with a modification at the desk.
Is there objection to the modification? Without objection. The clerk will report.
The Senator from Maine, Ms. Snow, proposes amendment number 2080 as modified.
I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam President.
If the Senator will hold under the previous order, there will be 2 minutes of debate equally divided prior to a vote on amendment number 2080 offered by the Senator from Maine.
Thank you, Madam President. Very briefly, first I want to thank the chair of the committee and my colleague from Maine, Senator Collins, for working and assisting me in modifying this amendment. But, Madam President, I thought this amendment was important from this standpoint and based on our experience in Maine with the recent proposal by the Postal Service to close a distributional and processing facility. And as my colleague, Senator Collins, will attest as well, we've discovered that much of their methodology was indeed faulty, and the savings that they had suggested would be achieved by closing this facility.
Continue.
And the methodology and the savings that they had proposed for closing this facility would be achieved. So there were many questions raised with those numbers and reports. As we know, before the U.S. Postal Service can make any determination for closing a facility, they have to prepare and publish an area processing study. And so based on that study, I have recommended that we now have an independent verification of the numbers and the proposals by the U.S. Postal Service so that we can make sure that those numbers are accurate, that we verify the methodology in addition to the savings. One of the examples that I can give you from this proposal that they had made for our facility in the state of Maine was, for example, eliminating 2 management positions for the savings of $120,000 for $799,000. When we questioned the veracity of that number, they backtracked and proposed that it would only achieve $120,000. Yet, incredulously, they have now submitted their final area processing study this year, and they returned to the higher figure of $800,000 for 2 management positions. We know that that cannot be accurate. So therefore, given the enormous significance of these proposals, we need to have independent verification by the Postal Regulatory Commission before any closure can go forward.
Madam President.
The other senator from Maine.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I want to congratulate my colleague from Maine for an excellent amendment. As she indicated, the Postal Service made a major miscalculation, a mathematical error, in the study that it did on the Hamden Processing Center in our state. So Senator Snow's amendment would say that if a proposed consolidation of a mail processing center is appealed to the Postal Regulatory Commission, the Commission can be asked to review the underlying studies, methodology, and the estimated savings to make sure that it's correct. Because right now, there's really no way to challenge a mistake that is made by the Postal Service in conducting these very important studies that are going to decide whether or not processing centers stay open. So I commend my colleague from Maine for a very well thought out amendment, and I urge its adoption by voice vote.
Is there further debate? If not, the question is on the amendment as modified. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
Madam President.
The senator from New Mexico.
Madam President, I call up my amendment 2043 and ask consent that it be modified with the changes at the desk.
Is there objection? Without objection, so ordered. The clerk will report.
The senator from New Mexico, Mr. Udall, proposes amendment number 2043 as modified.
Under the previous order, there will be 2 minutes of debate equally divided prior to a vote on amendment number 2043 offered by the senator from New Mexico.
Madam President, this amendment strikes the provisions allowing UPS to move to 5-day service in 2 years. 2 years is simply not enough time to see the changes we're making in this bill take effect before we cut this essential service. My amendment does not say we never move to 5-day service. But what it does say is that 2 years is not enough time for the Postal Service to implement the many cost-saving measures in the bill. Why eliminate one of the key competitive advantages and hurt rural America before we know what the effects of these reforms are? It makes no sense. Why would we make a change that would reduce mail volume by almost 7%? Isn't that why we got in this crisis in the first place? I hope my colleagues will join me in protecting rural jobs and go on record to say clearly that moving to 5-day service should be a last resort. Reserve my time.
Madam President.
The Senator from Connecticut.
Madam President, I rise to oppose the amendment by my friend from New Mexico. I know there are a lot of people who don't want to lose 6-day delivery, but the greater imperative is not to lose the Postal Service as we know it. The Postmaster asked for the immediate authority to go from 6 days of delivery to 5. In this bill, we've given the Postmaster authority in many different areas to save money. We said as a result that we will not give him the authority to go from 6 days of delivery to 5 for 2 years, hoping that within the 2 years he can save enough money not to have to make this change. Frankly, I'm skeptical that he can. But we wanted to give him in 6 days delivery at least that last opportunity. To pull this out of the bill, this procedure with a lot of due process in it, before the move can be made from 6 to 5 days, really removes the credibility from the bill and I think will jeopardize its ultimate adoption. So with a lot of respect and affection for my friend from New Mexico, I urge my colleagues to vote against this amendment.
Madam President.
Senator from Maine.
Madam President, this amendment would also take $8.9 billion that is supposed to go to pay for retiree health benefits of postal workers and instead redirects those funds to maintain 6-day-a-week delivery of the mail. Now, I hope that we always have 6-day-a-week delivery. I think that is an asset. I think we should strive to preserve it, and that's why our bill prohibits going to 5-day delivery for 2 years.
The opposition's time has expired.
To wring all the waste out of the system.
Madam President, Saturday service is absolutely essential in these rural areas. I ask for the yeas and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka, Mr. Alexander, Ms. Ayotte, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Baucus, Mr. Begich, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Bingaman, Mr. Blumenthal, Mr. Blunt, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Boxer, Mr. Brown of Massachusetts, Mr. Brown of Ohio,
Got Sanders?
Gotcha. Gotcha, sir. Mr. Burr. Ms. Cantwell. Mr. Cardin. Mr. Carper. Mr. Casey. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Coates. Mr. Coburn. Mr. Cochran. Ms. Collins. Mr. Conrad. Mr. Coons. Mr. Corker. Mr. Cornyn. Mr. Crapo. Mr. Dement. Mr. Durbin. Mr. Enzi. Mrs. Feinstein. Sure. Mr. Franken. Mrs. Gillibrand. Mr. Graham. Mr. Grassley. Mrs. Hagan. Mr. Harkin. Mr. Hatch. Mr. Heller. Mr. Hoven. Mrs. Hutchison. Mr. Inhofe. Mr. Inouye. Mr. Isaacson. Mr. Johans. Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin. Mr. Johnson of South Dakota. Mr. Carey. Mr. Kirk. Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Cole. Mr. Kyle. Ms. Landrieu. Mr. Lautenberg. Mr. Leahy. Mr. Lee. Mr. Levin. Mr. Lieberman. Mr. Lugar. Mr. Manchin. Mr. McCain. Mrs. McCaskill. Mr. McConnell. Mr. Menendez. Mr. Merkley. Ms. Mikulski. Mr. Moran. Ms. Murkowski. Mrs. Murray. Mr. Nelson of Nebraska. Mr. Nelson of Florida. Mr. Paul. Mr. Portman. Mr. Pryor. Mr. Reed of Rhode Island. No. Mr. Reed of Nevada. Mr. Risch. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Rockefeller. Mr. Rubio. Mr. Sanders. Mr. Schumer. Mr. Sessions. Mrs. Shaheen. Mr. Shelby. Ms. Snow. Ms. Stabenow. Mr. Tester. Mr. Thune. Mr. Toomey. Mr. Udall of Colorado. Mr. Udall of New Mexico. Mr. Vitter. Mr. Warner. Mr. Webb. Mr. Whitehouse. Mr. Wicker. Mr. Wyden. Senators voting in the affirmative: Begich, Blumenthal, Boxer, Brown of Ohio, Cantwell, Cardin, Casey, Coons, Franken, Johnson of South Dakota, Klobuchar, Cole, Leahy, Manchin, Menendez, Merkley, Murray, Nelson of Nebraska, Nelson of Florida, Reed of Rhode Island, Rockefeller, Sanders, Shaheen, Stabenow, Tester, Udall of New Mexico, and Wyden. Mr. Bozeman. Mrs. Gillibrand. Mrs. Gillibrand, aye. Mr. Lugar. Mr. Udall. Mr. Udall of Colorado, aye. Mr. Coburn. Senators voting in the negative: Alexander, Blunt, Bozeman, Brown of Massachusetts, Burr, Carper, Chambliss, Coburn, Cochran, Collins, Conrad, Corker, Crapo, Feinstein, Graham, Grassley, Hagan, Hatch, Heller, Hoven, Hutchison, Inhofe, Isaacson, Johans, Lieberman, Lugar, Moran, Portman, Risch, Sessions, Shelby, Thune, Toomey, Warner, and Wicker. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin, no. Mr. DeMint. Mr. DeMint, no. Mr. Kyle. Mr. Kyle, no.
Don't get lost.
Ms. Mikulski. Ms. Mikulski, aye. Mr. Rubio, no. Mr. Roberts. No. Mr. Roberts, no. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee, no. Mr. Vitter, no. Mr. Enzi. Mr. Enzi, no. Ms. Murkowski, no. Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett, aye. Mr. Durbin. Mr. Durbin, aye. Mr. Akaka. Mr. Akaka, no. Mr. Pryor. Mr. Pryor, no. Mr. Webb. Mr. Webb, no. Mr. Bingaman. Mr. Bingaman, no. Harkin. Mr. Harkin, aye. Mr. Baucus. Mr. Baucus, aye. Mr. Carey. Mr. Carey, aye. Mr. Cornyn, no. Mr. Brasso. Mr. Brasso, no. Mr. McConnell. Mr. McConnell, no. Mr. Paul. Mr. Paul, no. Ms. Snow. Ms. Snow, aye. Mrs. McCaskill. Mrs. McCaskill, aye. Mr. Coates, no. Mr. McCain. Mr. McCain. No. Ms. Ayotte. Ms. Ayotte. No. Mr. Inouye. Mr. Inouye, aye. Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed of Nevada, aye. Landrieu. Mr. Schumer. Ms. Landrieu. Ms. Landrieu, no. Mr. Schumer. Mr. Schumer, aye. Mr. Lautenberg. Mr. Lautenberg, aye. Mr. Levin, aye. Mr. Whitehouse, aye.
Are there any senators in the chamber wishing to vote or change their votes? On this vote, the yeas are 43, the nays are 56. Under the previous order requiring 60 votes for the adoption of this amendment, the amendment is not agreed to.
George.
Madam President,
The senator from Connecticut.
I move to
The Senate will be in order.
Madam President, I move to reconsider and lay the motion on the table.
Without objection.
Madam President,
The senator from Illinois.
I call up my amendment number 2082 and ask consent that it be modified with the changes that are at the desk.
Is there objection? If there are no objections, so ordered. The clerk will report.
The senator from Illinois, Mr. Durbin, proposes amendment number 2082 as modified.
Madam President, I ask consent that...
Under the previous order, there will be 2 minutes of debate equally divided prior to a vote on amendment number 2082 offered by the senator from Illinois.
Madam President, this was an amendment that I originally offered relative to processing facilities that had been subject to efficiency reviews. At the suggestion of the chairman of the committee, Senator Lieberman, as well as ranking members, we have modified the amendment. The sum total of its change would be for those limited facilities which have been found since the year 2006 to be efficient before they could be closed. The Postal Service would have to call on the U.S. Postal Service Inspector General to conduct an audit to find that the previous findings have been terminated, were no longer valid. That is the only change. It was recommended by the committee and the staff, and I've added that modification to the amendment.
Madam President.
Senator from Connecticut.
Madam President, I thank my friend from Illinois. He's explained the amendment totally. It's a good amendment. I support its passage and move that we adopt it by voice.
Is there further debate? If not, the question is on the amendment as modified. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. The ayes should have it. The ayes do have it. The amendment is agreed to.
Madam President, I move for reconsideration and ask that the motion be laid on the table.
Without objection.
I thank the chair.
Madam President.
The senator from Hawaii.
Madam President.
The Senate will be in order.
Madam
Senator.
President, I call up my amendment 2034.
The clerk will report.
The senator from Hawaii, Mr. Akaka, proposes
Madam
amendment
President,
number
I ask
2034.
consent that the further reading be dispensed with.
Without objection. There will be, under the previous order, there will be 2 minutes of debate equally divided prior to a vote on amendment 2034 offered by the senator from Hawaii.
Madam President, I have serious concerns with the FECA provisions in this bill, especially since they would reduce benefits for many employees who are already injured while working in service to this country, such as federal fire workers, FBI agents, prison guards, and civilians serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. In addition, unlike most state workers' comp programs, this bill would reduce benefits for elderly disabled employees when they reach retirement age. My amendment offers a reasonable alternative by replacing the FECA provisions in this bill with the Republican-led bipartisan FECA reform bill that passed the House by voice vote last year. The House chose not to make benefit changes without the additional information it sought from GAO, and we should follow their lead. This amendment, supported by more than 20 organizations, would make common sense reforms that will improve program efficiency and integrity without reducing benefits for disabled seniors, and I urge my colleagues to support it. I reserve my time.
The senator from Maine.
President. Madam President, this amendment would strike the federal workers' compensation title in the bill and replace it with very minor provisions that provide no significant cost savings. The amendment would strike the reforms that bring parity between workers' comp benefits and retirement benefits for federal workers. It makes it much more comparable to the state's workers' comp plan. The federal plan is more generous than any state plan. The amendment does nothing to combat the rampant fraud nor constrain costs, which have increased by $1 billion. Mr. President, in the current workers' comp program, we have 2,000 postal employees who are over age 70. We have 6 federal workers who are age 100 or older. These individuals are not coming back to work. We're trying to focus this program, as it should be, on returning injured workers to work. It is very similar to the proposals that the Obama administration has made. It grandfathers in everyone for 3 years, as well as those age 65 and older. Thank you.
Expired.
Mr. President, I just wanted to join my friend from Maine in respectfully opposing Senator Kaka's amendment. This workers' compensation program has really gone out of control. Senator Collins has worked hard on this with others. Her reform proposal for the Postal Service struck the Obama administration as so sensible that they asked our committee to extend it to all of the federal government employees. So I urge opposition respectfully to the Akaka amendment.
Question is on the amendment. The senator from Hawaii.
Yes, Mr. President, cutting workers' compensation benefits government-wide is not fair, and it is not necessary to save the Postal Service. We should follow the House's example and enact bipartisan reforms contained in my amendment and wait until GO finishes its analysis before making decisions on its benefit levels. I strongly urge my colleagues to adopt my amendment. Mr. President, I ask that for the ayes and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka. Mr. Alexander. Ms. Ayotte. Mr. Barrasso.
No. I've got to go to this.
Mr. Baucus. Mr. Begich. Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bingaman. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Blunt. Mr. Boozman. Mrs. Boxer. Mr. Brown of Massachusetts. Mr. Brown of Ohio. Mr. Burr. Ms. Cantwell. Mr. Cardin. Mr. Carper. Mr. Casey. Mr. Chambliss.
Bennett. But only one part. Now
Mr. Coates, Mr. Coburn, Mr. Cochran, Ms. Collins, Mr. Conrad, Mr. Coons, Mr. Corker, Mr. Cornyn,
and Corker?
Mr. Crapo, Mr. Dement, Mr. Durbin, Mr. Inze, Mrs. Feinstein, Mr. Franken,
No.
Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mrs. Hagan, Mr. Harkin, Mr. Hatch, Mr. Heller, Mr. Hoven, Mrs. Hutchison, Mr. Inhofe, Mr. Inouye, Mr. Isaacson, Mr. Johans, Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin, Mr. Johnson of South Dakota, Mr. Carey, Mr. Kirk, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Cole, Mr. Kyle, Ms. Landrieu, Mr. Lautenberg, Mr. Leahy, Mr. Lee, Mr. Levin, Mr. Lieberman, Mr. Lugar, Mr. Manchin, Mr. McCain, Mrs. McCaskill, Mr. McConnell, Mr. McConnell, Mr. Menendez, Mr. Merkley, Ms. Mikulski, Mr. Moran, Ms. Murkowski, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Nelson of Nebraska, Mr. Nelson of Florida, Mr. Paul, Mr. Portman, Mr. Pryor, Mr. Reed of Rhode Island, Mr. Reed of Nevada, Mr. Risch, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Rockefeller, Mr. Rubio, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Sessions, Mr. Shaheen, Mr. Shelby, Ms. Snow, Ms. Stabenow, Mr. Tester, Mr. Thune, Mr. Toomey, Mr. Udall of Colorado, Mr. Udall of New Mexico, Mr. Vitter, Mr. Warner, Mr. Webb, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Senators voting in the affirmative: Akaka, Begich, Bingaman, Blumenthal, Boxer, Cantwell, Cardin, Casey, Feinstein, Franken, Gillibrand, Harkin, Inouye, Johnson of South Dakota, Carey, Klobuchar, Cole, Lautenberg, Leahy, Levin, Manchin, Menendez, Merkley, Mikulski, Murray, Nelson of Nebraska, Nelson of Florida, Pryor, Reed of Rhode Island, Rockefeller, Sanders, Tester, and Wyden. Mr. Graham. Ms. Murkowski. Senators voting in the negative: Alexander, Ayotte, Barrasso, Bennett, Blunt, Bozeman, Burr, Carper, Coates, Collins, Corker, Cornyn, DeMint, Enzi, Graham, Grassley, Hatch, Hoeven, Inhofe, Isaacson, Johans, Johnson of Wisconsin, Kyle, Landrieu, Lee, Lieberman, Lugar, McCain, McCaskill, Moran, Murkowski, Paul, Portman, Risch, Roberts, Rubio, Sessions, Shelby, Thune, Toomey, and Wicker. Mr. Whitehouse, aye. Mr. Cochran. Mr. Cochran, no. Mrs. Shaheen. Mrs. Shaheen, aye. Mr. Udall. Mr. Udall of New Mexico, aye. Snow. Ms. Snow, no. Mr. Schumer. Mr. Schumer, aye. Mr. Coons, aye. Mrs. Hagan, no. Mrs. Hutchison, no. Mr. Heller, aye. Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown of Massachusetts, no. Ms. Stabenow. Ms. Stabenow, aye. Guess what list is over there? Mr. Udall of Colorado, no. Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown of Ohio, aye. Mr. Webb. Mr. Webb, aye. Mr. Coburn. Mr. Coburn, no. Mr. Warner, no. Mr. Crapo. Mr. Crapo, no. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chambliss, no. Mr. Vitter, no. Mr. Baucus, aye. Mr. Durbin, aye. Mr. Conrad. Mr. Conrad, aye. Mr. Reed of Nevada, aye. Mr. McConnell. Mr. McConnell, no.
Are there any other senators in the chamber wishing to vote? Senators wishing to change their vote? Then on this vote, the yeas are 46, the nays are 53 under the previous order requiring 60 votes for the adoption of this amendment. The amendment is not agreed to. The senator from Colorado is recognized.
President, I call up my amendment number 2047 and ask consent that it be modified with the changes that are at the desk.
Is there objection? Without objection, so ordered. Clerk will report the amendment.
The senator from Colorado, Mr. Bennett, proposes an amendment number 2047 as modified.
Mr. President, I ask consent that further reading be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Thank you. I rise on behalf of Amendment 2047, which I have co-sponsored with Senator Blunt. I deeply appreciate his leadership here. This bipartisan amendment would allow for a non-paid advocate to represent communities facing a closure or a consolidation. Advocates would represent their community's interests throughout closure proceedings and would work with the Postal Service to identify alternative measures to maintain service standards. The advocates would have access to documents, data, and reports related to a proposed closure. Advocates would also have authority to appeal a final decision on closure to the Postal Regulatory Commission if there is concern the closure would hurt service standards. Finally, the amendment would also allow the Strategic Commission already contained within this bill to develop interagency agreements so that post offices could provide additional government services such as the issuance of Social Security cards and hunting and fishing licenses similar to what it already does for passports. In 2011, Mr. President, to take 1 year, the Postal Service accepted 5.6 million passport applications that generated $182 million in revenue. This amendment has the potential to cut government costs, improve access, and help keep post offices open by supplementing revenue streams in a way that is particularly helpful to our rural communities. I hope the Senate can adopt this amendment. I'd yield to my colleague, Senator Blunt, and thank him for all of his work.
Well, I've been pleased, Mr. President, to work with Senator Bennett on this amendment. I think it does ensure that communities aren't notified that a facility was closed without having any opportunity to have input in that. It provides for advocacy and also gives the post office system some flexibility that they don't have now to provide postal service in new and innovative ways, and I urge my colleagues to adopt this amendment.
Senator from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want also, as a co-sponsor of this very important piece of legislation, I want to commend Senator Bennett and Blunt for working together in a truly bipartisan way to make sure we get another good addition to this bill. And I agree that the communities affected by postal closings should have that strong advocacy to protect them against arbitrary and capricious closings. This bill also asks the Strategic Advisory Commission established in our bill to look into how other federal and state agencies and Postal Service might enter into interagency agreements in order to better utilize the service and improve efficiencies as referenced by the senator from Colorado. And I want to say that they're both fine improvements, and I and the prime sponsors of the amendment support this amendment. Thank you. I yield the floor.
Is there further debate? If not, the question is on the amendment. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
Mr. President.
Senator from Tennessee is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to call up amendment number 2083. Mr. President, this amendment is a balance.
The clerk will report.
Senator from Tennessee, Mr. Corker, proposes an amendment number 2083.
There will be 2 minutes of debate equally divided. The senator from Tennessee is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment is a balanced approach that strives to give the United States Post Office maximum flexibility in multiple areas as they work towards financial stability. Here's the best part, Mr. President. According to the Congressional Budget Office, this amendment will result in savings of $21 billion over the next 10 years. I don't think we've seen amendments that do this. This saves $21 billion. In conclusion, Mr. President, it's clear that the Post Office needs to make drastic changes, and I applaud those portions of 1789 that allow the Post Office greater flexibility. But too many provisions in 1789 would put more restrictions on the Post Office, not fewer, and limit the organization's ability to adapt to the changing times. So I urge support of my amendment and ask for the yeas and nays.
President.
Is there a sufficient second? there appears to be.